Good morning and welcome to Rad Chat, the multi-award winning oncology podcast led by two therapeutic radiographers. My name's Jo McNamara and I'm joined by fellow host Naman Anderson.
Hi everyone.
So we're here at UKIO and we are joined by our first guest of the day. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's William Simner and I'm a Business Development Manager and Strategy Lead for Qure.AI.
That sounds like a really posh, fancy title.
It does.
So tell us, what does that mean you do?
So essentially it's trying to bring tools into clinicians' hands, so trying to figure out who can use them, how they're going to use them within the NHS and the private sector.
Right. So what's your kind of background?
So background is actually a cardiac physiologist, so I was an allied health professional by training, so I did that for about 8 years in a variety of settings. Before joining the industry, I spoke to a few people about where I could go next, and the big deal was kind of helping even more people, in one go, and at that kind of scale. So I joined originally with Philips and moved around a little bit since then. I've ended up at Qure about 2.5 months ago.
Do you miss the clinical work?
I do, particularly from an intellectual perspective. It's fascinating. I look at an image, a diagnostic image, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and it's that automatic kind of response, I think. So I do miss that side of things, and again, seeing patients' faces when you found something, but something that can be resolved. I do miss that feeling.
So what is it that the company does?
So kind of our mission statement is to help make healthcare affordable and accessible using AI. What that really means is our team have built a set of tools, AI-powered tools that are rigorously regulated.
I'm glad you get that in, because obviously that's the one big fear, isn't it, with AI?
It is, and they have been rigorously regulated. We have our CE mark for a reason, we have our FDA for a reason, because we've done that due diligence and bodies have done their due diligence on us. But really it's about building tools that support clinicians try to do more with the same resources, which has been something that's been asked of clinicians for years. I've experienced it, so you both have experienced it, and many people listening today would have done as well.
How many people work for the company? I'm always interested.
So it's about over 200 now. I think it started off around 6. It's grown quite substantially. So we've started off in Mumbai. We're actually in 75 countries now around the world. So we're in some state of deployments around the world. So we're kind of building up our UK presence. So we have quite a growing team here. We've got lots of our colleagues visiting over from Mumbai and Bangalore as well with us at the booth today.
So when you kind of say that obviously you're using AI, what's the AI actually looking at? Diagnostic scans or MRI scans or plain film?
So chest x-ray as well as CT. So we have our chest x-ray product. We have CT for lungs, so for lung cancer screening, as well as for head, so for traumatic brain injury.
How quick can it register a problem?
So less than a minute. So it's been built for speed, because one of the big points about this is doing all with the same resources and increasing efficiencies for clinicians and support staff across the board. So it's all about speed, the ability to triage very quickly whether something is abnormal or normal, and allowing clinicians to prioritise those patients for care.
So we've got an AI series that has just launched, and we're really lucky to have two amazing professionals join us yesterday and launching that podcast series. But in terms of some of the things they were talking about was the fact that obviously AI is almost like Marmite. You love it or hate it, or maybe hate's not the right word, and maybe it's about being uneducated or fearful because of films or stereotypes of AI.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of those things where AI in healthcare is on a journey from kind of this undesirable to undeniable.
I like it.
Journey. It sounds a bit cheesy. But we are somewhere on that journey right now. And I don't want to say buy-in, it's trust.
Yeah.
It has to get the trust of not just clinicians, but patients as well.
Yeah.
And what I want to see more of, it's a great forum for it, is patients coming and telling their stories about early detection.
Yeah.
Incidentally, there's stories of patients going into A&E maybe with a fall, have their potential rib fracture, otherwise asymptomatic. And AI within 1 minute has looked at that chest x-ray and said, well, there's signs of a lung nodule here, something suspicious, patient needs attention. I want to hear more where patients have said, yeah, the AI helped pick that up.
Yeah.
A clinician may not have even seen that, a clinician may not have even seen the x-ray for however how long, or it may have been outsourced. I want to see patients saying that rather than the all too familiar story of patients going to A&E presenting with symptoms and they're being told it's stage 3 or stage 4 lung cancer, for example. So that's companies like ours creating these tools, like our lung cancer screening tool, to support. I mean, like I said, I want to hear from patients, not so much the industry like myself, because there is that just conscious bias and unconscious bias that will always be present when we're talking about it. You mentioned that education, it's a huge education piece, and it's where we can support institutions in doing that without having branding all over it.
If we have a priority system, does that not mean that more routine scans will be delayed to be reported?
That's a great question, and there's this big debate about where do we go with this? Well, we can flip it on its head and say, well, actually, we want to empower reporting radiographers as well as radiologists. We want to encourage that growth, that movement. We can see these advanced radiographers coming through reporting and being able to say, right, we can give those to radiographers to review. We've got a tool behind it as that, I suppose, first pair of eyes in the sense of the triaging, but also a second pair of eyes for that radiographer to give them a high degree of confidence that if that tool says it's normal, they review it, because of course we'll have that human presence, but it will be normal. And that's where we kind of want to flip that on its head. Instead of thinking about delays, actually, this will help speed things up across the board.
If you have the capabilities to maybe report quicker utilising the AI, do you think there's the potential then for patients having more screening? So, essentially, I know America's a very different system to the UK, but lots of patients will have a full CT scan every couple of years. Do you envisage that could be made more of a possibility in the UK because of the use of AI? Or do you think that's still an abuse of kind of utilising radiation in that way?
That's a great point. It's patient safety, it's weighing up that risk, which only the clinicians can really do in terms of justifying it. But in terms of simple things like an X-ray, we're already doing it in the sense of you can come for an X-ray. I gave that example of a form, but our tool looks at over 30 abnormalities. So it will pick things up that we aren't actually looking for, that clinicians aren't thinking of, because patients are presenting with a specific symptom that highlights and points them to that route. Or we're coming into a very busy A&E where the consultant's like, right, what we had done, what tests we had done. Okay, this is incidentally, and likewise normal is one of those findings, right? I mean, every scan's going to be significant. But that's a great point. I think it is about weighing up the risks. I mean, you see screeners in the private sectors being used, and you think, okay, patients are going quite frequently for those, and it's great to have that health checkup, but they are giving themselves a fair dosage every few years.
Is there a false positive or a false negative rate?
Sort of 99% sensitivity, for example, for our chest X-ray tool. These tools will only get better over time as well, and the more we train them. So again, with any AI in general, even if you're training anything, training people, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So if you put in verified data, verified with human expertise, that humans have seen it and verified and trained that tool, you're going to get reproducible results that are reliable. And that's what we ask of our clinicians to produce every single day. And that's why we constantly retrain our algorithms with learnings from sites where we've put the tools into the clinicians' hands, and we've got feedback from them. It's that constant feedback loop that we can just keep making accurate and better products.
It's going to be hard for you to answer this, but I'm going to ask the question. Do you think that there's a possibility that in the future, the more kind of sensitive, the more accurate that the AI gets, that there's a potential then for over-reliance from radiologists, and actually there could be that potential for radiologists to go, well, because the AI hasn't picked anything up, there's no way I'm going to see anything in addition, and actually my role as a radiologist is just to check that I am confirming what the AI has, rather than actually looking at the entirety of that patient.
It's a support tool. I think that there's always the argument that if something's been triaged, it's already your bias going into it. So right, there's definitely something on here, I've got to try and find it. Okay, the AI has drawn a box around this. Okay, great, I'll just focus on the shiny thing effectively and may not look at the rest of the scan. I don't think that's the case. I think radiologists and reporting radiographers by nature will want to investigate. I don't think they'll get lazy. We know this horrible stat it's always growing, but 44% shortage of radiologists, for example, by 2026. It's awful. So anywhere where we can help support them increase the efficiency in their reporting, I think is only going to be a good thing and a positive thing.
What would you give advice-wise to people on AI to take away from this episode?
It's getting information about AI from the right sources. We've seen the newspaper headlines in the last few weeks, and we've seen people who have been, the godfathers of AI have been coming out and giving it a bit of a bad rep. What I have noticed is that they don't really talk about AI in healthcare that much. They talk about weaponry and wars and things like that, and that's because it's highly regulated. I mentioned touched on it right at the start. Highly regulated. So it's reach out to, yes, there'll be a bias because we're an industry, but reach out to us for information. We had some great discussions with people who aren't at the event as exhibitors or delegates, but just working here, just reaching out saying, hey, I've heard this about AI.
Yeah.
Can ask you a few questions, which is really interesting. And for clinicians, I think more and more so it's going to be built into training programs, there'll be modules on it, both at university and sort of CPD as well, which I see industry supporting a great deal of, without the bias, but just bringing that education to putting it in the hands of the clinicians and patient groups as well.
So I've been overwhelmed by how many exhibitors are here, kind of flogging AI. Do you think potentially having lots of different systems and software is going to negatively impact data transfer? I'm just thinking about maybe patient systems that already exist in the NHS that vary between regions. We already, as practitioners, get so frustrated when you're like, I can't access something, and I'm literally going to have to print it off and send it in the post. Do you think, how does it work with AI? Is that an issue?
So from the ground up, just as an example for us, we built our tools to be vendor agnostic.
Right.
So we will work with who your PACS vendor is, etc. But I still remember the time when I'd scan a paediatric patient and I'd have to put their scan on a DVD, secure, put it in a taxi and send it from Kettering to Leicester. So that by the time the patients got there, they've been able to maybe, hopefully, download the study. And in that region, luckily those days are gone with image sharing, the advent of that. But it's a challenge to the industry. And we knew from day zero that that's how it had to be. We had to partner up and work with the PACS providers and the larger businesses and build a suite of products. So we have 4 sort of regulated products right now, which I anticipate only growing. Because you don't want to have to look at 17 different AI vendors just for radiology, for example.
Yeah.
You just don't want to have to do that as someone trying to procure. It must be an awful headache.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge to industry to make things interoperable.
I'm going to ask a sensitive question. Again, you don't have to answer it. How expensive is AI? Like if I'm looking to purchase, one of your kind of packages, what kind of money are we talking about? Because in my mind, I'm using free chat GPT, and
So it's on the SBS framework. Again, we've done that for a reason. So we've been vetted. There's pricing on there that trust can have access to. And it means we've vetted from a financial due diligence standpoint, regulatory standpoint as well. Typically, AI is priced to be, like I mentioned right at the start, our mission statement, affordable and accessible. It's about volume. There's no good trying to sell it to a hospital where they do a couple of thousand scans a year.
Yeah.
They're not going to see that benefit. So it is about keeping costs reasonable for trusts, because out the other end, we're a prospective study now, for example. We want to prove that it is cost effective. It will reduce time, so efficiency, time saving, also cost saving. So it's very reasonably priced.
Any figures?
No.
So check out your website.
Exactly. And the SBS, like I said, any NHS trust who's part of that can access that and find us on there.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I have no doubt that lots of people will come and have a chat with you just to talk more about AI and find out about it, and hopefully you can reassure them that it's not the Terminator taking over healthcare.
Certainly not.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Oh.